Good evening, sports fans, and welcome to the Weekend Eve. I am Brian Kress, the awesome voice, with my man, my brother with another mother, Coach 24, and co-host of this phenomenal show, Darwin Penny. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well. Got a little jet lag, but we're gonna make it anyway.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We haven't been together in like 3 weeks doing a show, so it's like, oh my goodness. And he's here early, and I'm like rushing, and I make it in with 3 minutes to spare. Producing the show, Mr. DJ Scatter, George Walker. How are you doing, Mr. Walker?
Doing super fantastic this evening. Yes, I am.
All right. We are going. We are going to jam out. This is KUAW, and 816-599-6893 is the phone number. If you want to call in, speak your piece, say, want to tell us that we are awesome and incredible and all that good stuff, you can do that. So we will definitely take your calls. So, we got a lot of sports going on. This is actually the best time of the year to do sports. You have NFL football, you have playoff baseball, you have preseason hockey, and getting ready to do the NBA preseason, except for Draymond Green is deciding that he wants he's a narcissist and wants some publicity or something. We'll mention something a little bit about that, but I think right now baseball playoffs are going, and you've got Houston as the number one seed in the American League. You've got the Dodgers, the number one seed in the National League. You have Atlanta, who finally pulled away from the Mets and won the division, and it was amazing because they were in first place, I want to say 7 days, and yet still won the division.
We have 162 games scheduled at the major league level, but coupled with off days, the Mets were in first place 170 days. They are the longest tenured team to be in first place without actually winning the division. And so if we were in our old format that they had back in the 70s and the 80s and early 90s, where you just had a National League and an American League championship, the Mets might be on the outside looking in, even though they actually had an identical record with the Braves up to the end. But because of their head-to-head schedule, the Braves win the division and have the higher seed. And so it should be an interesting playoffs. This is the first time we're also looking at that many teams that have a bye the first round. And one of the things that I'm actually excited about is that the wild card is no longer a wild card game, but a wild card series. And that gives an opportunity for teams to play a best-of-3 series with somebody versus a one-game play-in. It just was very difficult for me to accept it when it was a playoff. It's not in the old format where you were saying to get in the playoffs, like if there was a tie and you'd have to have a one-game playoff, like so many years ago with the Yankees in Boston,
right?
And Bucky bleeping Dent,
right? Yeah.
But it is what it is, and so we're excited to see Seattle is making an appearance in the playoffs for the first time in 20 years.
Yep.
Tampa Bay is showing that you can be a small market team and continue to have success with what they've done. The Cardinals are back in. The Phillies are back in. And so we see some of our traditional powers, but also some of our lesser-known teams. People don't get to see Seattle play very much with them being on the West Coast and the greater Northwest. And so they're kind of out of view. Tampa is not a hotbed for baseball at the major league level, but they're back in again. And certainly you've got your traditional New York and L.A. flavor. And I think at some point in time, we'll probably be talking about who are our picks to be in the World Series.
Right, absolutely. And I'm hearing feedback. Is that my phone? That's not my phone. So anyway, sorry about that. I am looking forward to it too. Atlanta is the defending champs. They did beat Tampa Bay, wasn't it? They beat them last year. So you've got both teams in the playoffs. You got the Padres, who just melted down last year. I remember my sister and I going to the Cardinals game with the Padres, and they were self-imploding themselves. And this year, their pitching is finally doing very well. The one thing that I see out of all of these 12 teams is that they all have great pitching, which is one thing that the Royals don't have, and we will mention something a little bit about the Royals in a little bit. But you have all these teams. I mean, you have the Padres, you have the Dodgers that was supposed to have the best pitching. They're not as great as the Mets, but they have some great pitching. Cleveland has great pitching. You got Houston and Verlander. They are the team to beat in the American League. But I totally agree with you. Yeah, the Royals beat the A's in that one-game playoff in 2014, and that was a miraculous game. But you're not going to get those every year. Usually you get one team either just totally blowing out a team, or it's like a 2-1 boring score. But I do like the fact that are the best of three. It gives them the chance, because then they get to go. They each have home games. Now the favorite will have 2 home games. Now is it and I haven't totally checked this up. Is it they play 2 games at one place and then they play the third one, or is it back to back to back?
With the new format, they're actually playing all 3 games in one spot.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. So, see, I didn't know that. So I'm learning something. So I'm looking here. Right now, you have the Mets that are the 4 seed against the Padres that are the 5th seed, and then you have the Phillies that are the 6th seed and the Cardinals that are the 3rd seed, and the division winner. It's kind of similar to the NFL. Even though you won your division, you still got to play the playoffs. You have the Dodgers and Atlanta that have the bye. And then in the American League, you have the Mariners that are the 6th seed, or no, the fifth seed, playing the Jays that are the 4th seed. And then you got the Rays that are the 6th seed playing the Guardians that are the 3rd seed. So, saying that, who do you have winning those 4 series?
Well, I believe that Cleveland will win their series. Cleveland really started to find their stride the second half of the season. Early in the season they were toiling with the Twins and even the White Sox for a while as to who was going to take control of the Central. But over the long course of a season, the Cleveland's bats were just superior, and obviously they had great pitching as well. Put them in a position to do that. I expect Toronto to win the other series. I think Vlad Jr. is going to have a great coming out party during these series, and I think they'll be the favorite there. I think in the National League, the interesting series is the Padres and the Mets. To me, I think that's going to be a very difficult series. I think St. Louis will win the series over the Phillies, but I'm having a hard time with the Mets and the Padres. As you said earlier, the Padres have really underachieved. The Mets have been pretty much where we expected them to be. And will they recover from not having the bye? Will that be a blow to their psyche as a team? I don't think it will, and so I'm going to go with the Mets in that series. And then I think overall, I think we're going to have a repeat of 2017. I think we're going to have Astros, Dodgers in the World Series.
Well, they are the 2 best teams in baseball, and they showed it all year. In fact, the Dodgers, with 111 wins, became only the 5th team in the history of baseball to win 110-plus games. So that was pretty impressive. And they last year they were playing very well, and then all of a sudden they fell apart, and then they had to get it back together. This year that they did not fall apart. They just rolled along. Houston started off a little slow, and then they just picked it up and just totally dominated. And the Guardians, I'm going to give the Royals credit because it was when they played the Royals back in late August, early September, that the Guardians just all of a sudden, right after they played them, just totally kicked it in gear. So we'll give the Royals a little bit of credit. Saying that, I agree the Guardians are going to win the series with the Rays. I don't think the Rays have just they've been kind of, for a good team, they kind of disappeared. You know, you have those teams that you notice, and then you have the teams that don't notice. And I just don't see the Rays like they have been the last couple of years, especially last year when they were in the World Series. So I've got
Actually, they were in the World Series 2 years ago. Last year was the Astros that lost.
Was it the?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So because the Dodgers ended up winning. It was their first World Series victory since '88 and all that. But I still think the Rays. I think the Guardians are just playing I think they're arguably, out of the 8 teams here, I think they are playing the best ball of any of them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They've had to continue to grind, and like I said, they really found their stride the second half of the season. The Dodgers have been trying to maneuver through injuries. You know, they've been so far ahead, and that's one of the luxuries of being way ahead, is that you can start to line your rotation up. You can let some injuries heal up and try to get everybody back healthy. The hard part about that is you're not having to grind every day, and we've seen that in all type of sports where sometimes that bye doesn't always play in your favor. So, but I do think just when you look at them fundamentally as a team, top to bottom, and what they can do with the middle of their lineup, I think they pose the biggest threat to anybody when it comes to being consistent down there. And you know, at the end of the day, I think their recent success has some value, and we have to always look at that. I'm going to always look at guys that have had recent success, and they've got a veteran team. They're not young. They're not trying to prove themselves. They're trying to find their place in history. I think when you go back and look at all those teams that have won that many games in a year, I want to say all but one of them won the World Series in those respective years. Yeah.
I think the one that won all those games was the Seattle Mariners, and they didn't even make it to the World Series.
Right. Yeah, that was the 2001 Mariners, but they would actually fall number 6 on that list as far as winning percentages go. But yeah, I mean, you look at I think it's the 06 Cubs, the 09 Pirates, the 1902 Pirates, something like that, and the 54 Indians, which I think ironically is the last time Cleveland won a World Series in 1954.
Yep.
And it was when they won 111 games. So
yep.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and then certainly the 27 Yankees, Murderers Row, won 110 games. It's hard to win that many games in a season. And so,
it is.
So to be able to be where the Dodgers are this year, and then if we go back to 2020, the Dodgers had a higher winning percentage in 2020 than they did, even though we had a COVID-shortened year.
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I've got the Guardians over the Rays. I think I'm going to take the Blue Jays over the Mariners. They have been injured off and on. The Rookie of the Year, Rodriguez, he just kept, he was a phenomenal player. I think he hit 28 home runs, which is a Mariners rookie record. But he just kept getting injured, which actually gave Bobby Witt Jr. an opportunity to try to win Rookie of the Year because of that. And I think with all that, I think that's too much for them with the Blue Jays. Now in the National League, Cardinals, it would be a major upset for the Phillies to beat the Cardinals. Now saying this, I'm going to take the Padres. And yes, I am a Padre homer, but I really think the Padres are going to do very well because they played a lot of games against the Dodgers. So I mean, both the Mets and both the Mets and Padres, they have played tough games. I'm just going to give the edge to the Padres.
Okay.
So, but now, saying that, I totally agree with you too. I think Houston and the Dodgers are going to make it to the World Series. And as much as I'm not a Houston fan, I am really cheering for Houston because I would like Dusty Baker to get that finally needed manager title that he deserves. You don't want to just give it to somebody just to say you give it to him. He has really performed well. He is one of 3 managers all time that has won 100 games in both divisions, or both American League and National League, and has taken their team to the World Series. He's just the only one right now that has not won the World Series, and the other 2 was Sparky Anderson and Tony La Russa, which Tony La Russa is finally getting out of baseball. I think he was in way too long, and his health is really hurt. I think hurt the White Sox down the line. I think getting a new manager gives them an opportunity to be the team in the American League Central. I'm sorry, in the Midwest, the Central as a favorite going into next year.
Absolutely, he's certainly been good for the game. I think later in his career, I am one who views the opportunity that somebody needs to get an opportunity to manage. And so many times in the baseball world, and you say other sports too, we tend to turn over to guys who historically have been great. But I think it's time for some new blood, some new managers,
yes,
and everything. But we certainly celebrate Tony La Russa for what he's been able to do. I, too, am a big Dusty Baker fan and would love to see him get the final notch on his belt, feather in his cap, if you will, for also being one of the few guys that has over 2,000 career wins but does not have that elusive title of being a World Series champion. I think his place as far as Hall of Fame is solidified, but certainly I know Dusty would love that opportunity to host the Commissioner's Trophy at the end of the year. And so we wish them well. And so, but it's definitely going to be a fight to the finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only is he a great manager, and I'm not saying that loosely. He is a great manager, but not only that, he is a class act too, and that is something that you can't take lightly.
Absolutely. People don't know Dusty Baker's place in history. Sometimes he gets lost in the shuffle because he came up as a 19-year-old playing for the Braves in Atlanta, and he was there during the whole home run chase with Hank Aaron. He gives Hank Aaron credit for a lot of the knowledge that he has in baseball and what he does as a manager. He's said it on podcasts and things that I've listened to him talk about. He said, Henry Aaron was the reason why he's learned so much about the game. He was a really, really good all-star caliber player, playing for the Dodger teams that went to the World Series 77, 78 against the Yankees, and then part of that Dodger team that won it in 81. So he also experienced Fernando Mania.
Yep.
So Dusty's been there. And then I think lost in all of this is Dusty was the right person to address the media and all of the national attention that went along with the sign stealing scandal and in some people's mind the asterisk that should be beside their World Series championship. And Dusty was the right hire to come. And I was even one who was maybe a little bit critical, just like I am, of La Russa being older and getting that managerial time. I felt like, man, Dusty's had his opportunity. But I had a great friend in the game who said, no, Dusty's the right guy because of what they're going to have to deal with, media scrutiny and the press, Dusty's a guy who can handle it. And then when you thought about what he was able to witness as a player, and then what he's been able to handle as a manager, and he's won everywhere he's been, he was the right guy. And it's almost forgotten about the scandal just because of the way Dusty's handled that team.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you with that. Now, speaking of asterisks, Aaron Judge hit number 62, which is the American League home run record. A lot of big news about that. The guy that caught the ball has already gotten a $2 million offer. Saying that, and I'm not worried about the guy with the $2 million ball, but is Aaron Judge 62 home runs legit, or is it Barry Bonds 73?
For me, it's Barry Bonds' 73. There's a lot of speculation about what Bonds did or didn't do as far as performance enhancing. But the one thing we do know is that he set a league record for walks the same year that he hit the home run record. So people weren't serving up gopher balls. Aaron Judge, and not taking anything away from him, has had one of the greatest, arguably greatest all-time seasons this year in playing for the Yankees. But he also is not playing in old Yankee Stadium, which was larger, and the ball didn't carry the way it does in the new Yankee Stadium.
Right.
So it's hard to compare in eras, and we don't want to take away anything from him. And I understand some of the Maris's family, wanting to lift him up, certainly with him being part of the Yankee family, of which Roger Maris was. But he has the American League record. Barry Bonds is 73, unless you can prove otherwise, is the home run record. Did they say the same thing when McGwire broke the record?
Not at that time, but then later on they did. Saying that, I look at, we're talking about steroid use. Steroids doesn't make you hit a ball better. I could use steroids and I could bulk myself up and lift a house and a car, but it doesn't make me hit a baseball any better.
The hand-eye coordination that it takes to hit a baseball is one of the most difficult things in all of sports to do.
It is.
And so guys that are able to hit home runs, we've seen guys that didn't break records have spikes in their careers with home runs. Barry Bonds was not some guy who did not hit home runs. He just had not had a huge breakout season like he did that year. But there are a lot of other factors that we could talk about. We could talk about watered down pitching. We could talk about the ball and the ball being wound tighter, smaller ballparks.
Well, San Francisco is one of the smaller parks, and the McCovey Cove is one of the easiest places to hit a home run. And if you got a guy who can already hit a ball, mash the ball, it's going to make it a little bit easier for him.
And I think that's true, really, of almost all the stadiums are reduced in size in an effort to produce more offense in the game. We here in Kansas City have one of the biggest ballparks, the toughest ballpark in all of baseball to hit it out in Kauffman Stadium. And so I think that people have to be careful and to look at the total context of home run hitting and the ability of these players. And not to say that Aaron Judge certainly benefited, I think, by batting leadoff the majority of the year, which got him to the plate more often when it comes to plate appearances. And so people said the same thing about when Maris broke Root's record, because it was in a 162-game season versus a 154-game season.
Right.
Bonds didn't play every game in the year that he hit 73. He played 155 games that year. So,
right.
We've got to look at there's a whole lot of factors that you could look at. Some people could make the argument for Judge is him facing on a nightly basis, normally 2 to 3 pitchers, where in our older days you face maybe 1, maybe 2. Sometimes you could face 3 pitchers, but it's almost automatic now that you're going to face at least 2. Most of the time you're going to face 3 pitchers in a night, and on a given night you might face 4 pitchers in 4 different at bats. And so,
Right.
especially if you were to play a team like Tampa, who has what they call a starter, where a guy's just going out there, like you have a closer, they have a starter, a guy who's just going to go out there and throw the first 2 innings. That's what they want him to do.
Right.
And so, I think it's all difficult, but in my opinion, Barry Bonds still holds the single season and the career home run record. Aaron Judge holds now the American League record with 62 home runs.
And isn't this amazing that every American leaguer that hit 60 home runs are all from the Yankees?
It is amazing.
So, anyway, so we are Any Given Sunday. We're on KUAW. 816-599-6893 is the phone number. Give us a call. Speak your piece. Let us hear from you. You like the show, you hate the show, because we have a pretty awesome show. We are very, we have great repertoire. And I hope I said that right, which I probably didn't, but that's okay. We're talking baseball right now because baseball is actually the main thing. Yes, there is a football game tonight. Now, here's the other thing. Baseball ruined the opportunity. So, like in the last game of the NFL season, they play virtually all at the same time. You either play at noon or a few play at 3. But they all play at the same time. Last night, they could have played on primetime TV. There was no basketball. There was no football. There was a few college football games, which is, I'm sorry, it's not going to overtake it because you're not going to have like a Alabama-Georgia game on a Wednesday night. But baseball just still doesn't get it on trying to bring the fans to the game.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the television contracts that are negotiated, as well as your own individual market. Because you play so many more games where football is once a week, you can stage those games properly because it's once a week. When you're dealing with multiple games a week and you're trying to get in football, you're going to maximize your fan base. Okay, everybody's showing up on the same day. Baseball is not quite the same, where you're trying to maximize how many fans that you have in the stands in attendance. And so that's as much of your market as your television audience on a given night, especially during the week. I do think there are things that in the game of baseball can get a little bit more creative, and I think they could take some lessons from both football and basketball when it comes to marketing strategies that would give it a chance to continue to grow its brand. For so long, baseball was always considered our America's pastime, but we live in a instant gratification society today. I'm one that I would be for actually shortening the season so that the long haul of the season could keep fans more engaged throughout the year. Now, your average baseball fan is going to now re-engage with baseball because it's the playoffs, whereas you would want to try to keep those fans all throughout the year because if you are the average football fan, you're engaged every Sunday.
Right.
And so how can they do those things? They've done some things that I think did help in trying to create more regional rivalries, especially when the Astros move over to the American League, so that you could try to create a little bit more of a regional rivalry between them and the Rangers. Interleague play now allows the Royals and the Cardinals to play each other during the year. And so I think that the Yankees, the Mets get a chance to play each other. The Dodgers and the Angels get a chance to play each other because of interleague play. But I think there are going to have to be some creative marketing ways to engage this next generation of baseball. The average baseball fan right now pretty much is Brian Kress, as an average white male, 54 years old. I know you're a little older than that, and I won't put.
I'll take 54 years old.
but when demographics have shown that's the average baseball fan, and so how are you going to engage this new generation of kids and this transient country that we have now, where people are moving at a rapid rate, and so you're gonna have to do some things creatively to engage that audience. I won't today declare what that is, but I do know that there has to be some adjustments. If I had one suggestion, to me, that would be the answer is I would shorten the season probably down to about 140 games.
That much? But see, then you've got then the owners are they're losing money because they have 20 less games, and the TV contracts are not going to pay all that. So then you have that conflict. Whereas last year NFL added an extra game, and all of a sudden that was great because so
again, I'd go back to it's a once a week opportunity, and based on people's watching habits, and we're getting kids that they don't watch TV now as much as they watch YouTube. And those are small blurbs, and I think you've got to do that. Football gives you that once a week fix, and then you collapse, and then you start crescendoing up all the rest of the week to get yourself in a position to be ready for Sunday and let it all out again. You know, even basketball has off days, more off days. It's an 82-game schedule, but expanded playoffs. And so I think baseball has expanded their playoffs, and so now – you can't even call Reggie Mr. October anymore. You have to be Mr. November.
Right.
We're starting the playoffs. Here we are, the second week of October.
Yeah.
We're going to be starting the playoffs, and so we're going to wind up into November. And so, and I think you've got to figure out a way not to compete with football as much, because you're competing not only against NFL, but you're competing against college football as well. And so that's why I don't know where you make up that revenue for those 20 games that I would propose, Mr. Non-Commissioner. But I think just to keep the fans engaged in this new generation, to pick up some more fandom, I think this has to be something to be considered.
Absolutely. And there will be new rules coming into next season, and we will discuss that. We are at a halftime right now on Any Given Sunday. Coach 24 Darwin Penny, Brian Kress, the Awesome Voice, George Walker, DJ Scatter behind the scenes. We're going to take a quick break, and then we will be back and we'll discuss more of that. How much? All right, we are back. Any Given Sunday. This is Thursday night, the weekend eve, and we're looking forward to a lot of baseball and a lot of football. I'm Brian Kress, the Awesome Voice, with Coach 24 Darwin Penny, George Walker, DJ Scatter behind the scenes. We were talking a little bit about baseball. We were talking about the medium being me as a middle-aged white man that's doing the baseball. They got rules coming in next year. How much will it affect bringing in the younger generations? Because, like, we have children, so they're in their 20s and 30s. How do they affect it well? Is this going to benefit baseball in that aspect to bring in these young kids this way?
You know, I think like all sports are doing right now is designed to try to increase offensive production and also to speed up the game. That has always been the negative conversation around baseball, especially when we live with a fast-paced lifestyle today. And so I think those things would help. They're banning the shift. You know, all the infielders must have both feet entirely on the infield dirt. Two infielders have to stay on either side of the bag. And so if you're not doing that, then it becomes an automatic ball. The pitch clock, again, designed to speed up the game. One of the things that they were saying is that obviously the game moved too slow, and so there'll be batter has to be in the box, you know, all those things to alert the pitcher. And so pitcher does have the ability still to disengage the rubber, but overall these are things that were implemented at the minor league level with some level of success that they feel like now we can implement those things at the major league level. And so the one that's a little bit interesting to me is the larger bases. I'm still trying to figure out where the larger base actually is going to inspire guys to want to steal bases more, things like that. And so, but you know, overall, you know, baseball is not being stoic. It's not being rhetorical in what it's doing, and so it's trying to find that new wave. But I think the most important, if we're going to gain this new generations, really is not at the major league level in viewership. It's what we can do at the local level, at the grassroots level, to get kids more engaged. And so, you know, most of us remember that baseball and softball were a part of the PE curriculum when we were kids. And so it's been one of the things that we've tried to do with our Urban Youth Academy here is we've tried to take baseball and softball back into the PE curriculum to give kids more exposure to it, which then hopefully would drive them to be fans and to want to participate in the game and then create some fandom, you know, down the road.
Right. And baseball has been considered the old man sport, the old rules, however you put that. You know, as you said, you know, I'm the guy that's enjoying it because I probably like the old school rules. Are they still going to have struggle trying to break that old school mentality to bring it in? Because like the NFL is brought in, even though the new rules upset you, you still won't miss watching football. Even basketball a little bit. Yeah, you may complain a little bit about it, but you will still watch basketball. Baseball is the only one that's kind of balking at those rules. Is it going to benefit it?
Well, I think certainly there is a large contingency of people who are what you would deem as baseball purists who want to see the game played in its original format. Actually, without the shift, you're really bringing baseball back a little bit to its original format. Even though we always shifted or shaded players, the hard part was that you didn't have a guy in short right field. You just had, you know, you may not be on the if you were the shortstop. You may not be on the first base side of the bag, but you might be right almost behind the bag because this guy, he pulls a lot.
Right.
You know, they implemented a shift on Ted Williams. This is nothing new. And so everything is trying to, again, instill more offense in the game. You know, For me, the best rule that they've come up with for me has been the pitchers having to pitch to at least 3 batters. The bringing the pitcher in for one hitter used to work my nerves. You know, I'm just saying, because that was what was going to slow the game up.
Right.
And so I'm for a little bit of a pitch clock or some type of movement clock to get guys, because the best pitchers always work fast anyway.
Right.
I used to tell people, if you would go and watch a game between the Braves and the Astros, and you'd have the matchup of Roy Oswalt and Greg Maddux, you better be in your seat at game time, because it was going to be about an hour and a half game, because both of those guys, like, catcher put a finger down and I'm going to throw it. And so I think the speed of the game is something that is going to play the huge part in drawing some what I call TV fans,
Right.
People who are going to be willing to sit down watch a game for 3 hours, right. And but those of us who love the game will always appreciate a good 1-0 pitcher's duel.
Right, absolutely. I mean, like you were saying, Greg Maddux was fast. He threw a 78-pitch complete game shutout. I mean, now 78 pitches is what they pitch for 4 innings, and then they got to take them out because supposedly they're too many. You have, I still remember Nolan Ryan having a 215-pitch game. Oh my gosh, they would have been in an uproar today if that's happened.
Absolutely.
But the one thing that I do like is the fact that what drove me nuts was the guy getting out of the batter's box, adjusting his gloves about 4 or 5 times. I'm like, my God, just get up there and swing the bat. George Brett never even used gloves, so he couldn't adjust his gloves. He never had any. So,
and that's where the argument and the pushback will come and say, well, that's old school, because Nomar Garcia-Parra got everybody to constantly readjusting that. Or if you could go back farther, back in the old Texas Rangers, they had a guy that was also a major league manager, Mike Hargrove. Mike Hargrove, they used to call him the human rain delay, because he would take his time getting in that box. Everything had to be just right before he got in and took his swings. And so baseball is a game that's shrouded in idiosyncrasies. It's shrouded in routine. It's shrouded in things that have to repeat itself, and so it lends itself to being a little bit slower pace. But hopefully we'll engage this new generation at the grassroots, embrace a little bit more celebration, things like that, and I think that will be the key to getting this next generation.
Cool. That'll work, because I do enjoy having my grandkids coming out wanting to watch the game with me, so that is always a positive thing. So now we're going to switch our minds to football, NFL football. The Chiefs finally showed up. They finally played a game. That defense actually against the run against Tampa Bay looked like the 85 Bears, shutting them down. Patrick Mahomes looked like the world beater that he did, unlike he did last week against Indianapolis, won AFC Player of the Week. So that is good. Now, I want to turn my attention to the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the AFC West was supposed to be the best division in football. They are arguably one of the worst divisions in football. And the NFC least is now starting to turn to the NFC beast, because you've got 3 teams that are at least 3-1 or better. You've got Philadelphia at 4-0, you've got Dallas at 3-1, and the Giants at 3-1. Cooper Rush has been playing well. The Dallas Cowboys have been playing well. They have worked together. They may not have lit up the scores or anything, but they have played very well. You've got Dak Prescott, who has got a $40 million contract that is getting ready to come back. Is that a positive, or could that be a complication?
It would be a complication if Dak wasn't the unquestioned leader of that locker room. There's never been any doubt since 2016, his rookie year, that he was the leader of that locker room. So that's why I don't feel like it's any controversy. Now, you know who makes it controversy. Oh, Jera.
Yep.
Jera wants to keep the team relevant in any kind of way that he can. you want a good backup, right? We go back to the only undefeated team, the Miami Dolphins. Earl Morrall stepped in and did a great job. How did Tom Brady get his job? Well, the starter went down. Tom Brady came in, and coaches many times have gone with the hot hand. Ironically, how did Dak get his job? Tony Romo got hurt in preseason. They get off to a 7-1 start, and they made the decision. The difference, I would argue, though, is that Tony Romo was 36 years old.
Right.
He was in the twilight of his career and only had one more year left on his contract beyond 2016. Dak Prescott just signed a new deal.
Right.
And it's 40 million reasons why he's going to be in the lineup. I also think that there was a reason why 31 teams passed on Cooper Rush and when he was an available free agent. They didn't even bring him on to be their backup or anything like that. He's done an outstanding job of navigating the waters and making sure that they didn't go under, because when Dak went down, everybody cast him out. Like, it's over. They look bad on Monday night, the first game of the season, and then they've got to bring in a guy that nobody else wanted. It looked bad. He's the first Dallas quarterback to win his first 4 starts.
Right.
But I would beg everyone to calm down just a little bit and look at how well the defense has played in each 4 of his starts. They've never given up more than 17 points in any of his starts. They gave up 16 last year at Minnesota. They gave up 17 in his start against the Bengals. They gave up 13 to the Giants, and they gave up 10 to the Redskins. That's an average of about 15 points a game. So he's only had to score 16 points.
Right.
And he's made the plays when he's needed to make them. He did it last week without the benefit of a running game, whereas the week before he had 147 yards rushing between Zeke and Pollard. He didn't have that this week, but that defense was outstanding. And so he's doing his job. He's keeping it afloat. What he's actually done well is he's allowed them not to have to rush Dak back into service. He can get fully healed so that when he does come back, he's ready to go and he's ready to play and not limited in any kind of way.
Right, absolutely. But you also get the media. Let's just say we're doing hypotheticals. I despise hypotheticals. But let's just say Dallas comes and they go to LA, they beat the Rams. They're 4-1. Then they come in, they got to play the Eagles the next week. So Dak comes back and they start losing. How much of an effect will you said that he's still the leader of the team? How quickly can you lose a locker room if you start losing?
If he had a different demeanor about himself, if he was very, very selfish, young man, things like that, he could lose it really, really quick. But Dak has been nothing but straightforward, upstanding team player. He's been Cooper Rush's biggest cheerleader. He's helped him every step of the way. I don't think he would lose that unless he were to go out and just play horrible. He'd have to play horrible, not just lose a game.
Right.
Because anybody's capable of beating anybody. You can lose a game. The question is he going to get the same 15 points from the defense when they go out there, or will the game he go back and let's say, hypothetically, he scores 35 points as offense, but they give up 38.
Right.
So I think it's all hypothetical. I don't think in any way that they feel like that there's a controversy. Jerry just like to have something to talk about. I think he would really have to play really poorly for there to be an issue for him to lose that locker room.
Gotcha. So, and I kind of agree with that, but saying that, 2 things. Do you believe that Philadelphia is the best team in the NFL right now? And do you think Philadelphia can beat Dallas, because Philadelphia has not beaten Dallas in a while?
Right. Do I think they're the best team in the league? No. I think the best team in the league still resides here in Kansas City. And the next best team for me would be the Bills, and then the next best team after that for me would be the Bucks. Philadelphia for me would probably be about maybe 5. You got to remember this as 2 of the wins that they've had have been bad weather games where their ground game has really come through for them. They're playing well. They are an improved team. You got to remember they got in the playoffs last year as a 9-8 team. They should take a step forward this year and be a double-digit win team. With that said, I still think the Cowboys are better. Okay. At the end of the day, we'll find out over a long season how good Jalen Hurts really is. A 4-game window for me is not the telltale.
Right.
And so I think they'll get back to basics. I'd like to see both teams play each other healthy. And then the best thing is now Michael Gallup is coming back healthy. We saw him make an appearance last week, make a touchdown. So now Dallas has their field stretcher back, which all of a sudden opened up some things a little bit better for CD. Dallas needs one thing offensively. They need some tight ends who can block.
Right.
Okay. They sorely missed Jason Witten. When people talk about the line and all of that, when Zeke was able to have such success in the running game, Jason Witten was a huge part of that.
Right.
They're not very good at blocking at tight end. You can go all the way back to last year, the opening game that they lost to the Bucks. Simple block that a tight end did not get.
That we talked about that.
Absolutely.
We talked about technical. You had to be technical, and that was one of those things that you didn't take care of, which caused
your tight end allows you to get to the edge.
Right.
Right. And it allows you not to necessarily have to pull guards, and those guys can block big on big inside. Anyway, but I think Philadelphia is a really good team. I think they're a team that's capable of contending for the NFC. I don't think they're in the class of a Buffalo or a Kansas City at this point. I would even place San Francisco ahead of them. So with that, I would have them right now about 5th or 6th in the league, but certainly they're on the rise.
Absolutely. Now, I thought San Francisco was one of the worst teams after. Well, I thought when Garofalo came back, I thought, okay, they're going to be better. And then they turned around and did that dud the next week. And then they play the Rams, and I'm thinking, okay, Rams will win. I'm not saying that they will stomp them, but they'll win. And the 49ers just ran all over them. So I'm like, wow, okay. So, and you're right. This is only a quarter of the season. So roughly it's the first quarter of the season. Mm-hmm. And usually you can score 35 points in the first quarter, but you still got 3 more quarters to play this game. Saying that tonight's game is the Colts and the Broncos. Both teams have lost their star running back, at least Indianapolis for tonight, Broncos for the rest of the year. So who do you have in this game?
I'm going to go with the better defense right now. I think Denver is playing better defense, so I'm going to give the Broncos the edge in that. And so what we've got is 2 aging quarterbacks trying to find themselves in a level of consistency to go out and play. Russell Wilson in a new system. The only thing I really don't trust about the Broncos is their coach, right? He's looked like a rookie coach with his time management and decision-making skills on that end. But Jonathan Taylor was such a huge part of the offensive production with the Colts, and with him being out, we'll see. Hines is a pretty good back, but certainly Matt Ryan needs to be able to play action. That's always been a huge key to his success. But I just think his better days are past him. I felt that last year in Atlanta, and I feel like it again this year. He's had one half-decent week, and he's had another half-decent drive to get them back to upset Kansas City. But, overall, I would have to go with Denver based on their defense is pretty solid.
Yeah.
Their front seven and their back end is pretty solid.
Absolutely. So I've got Denver 24-20. They're 3-point favorites. I think they will win by at least 4. Nathaniel Hackett makes Brandon Staley look like Andy Reid in the making coaching decisions. So we both picked the Broncos. And now the most important and best part of our show, Penny, for your thoughts.
Absolutely. Tonight, I just want to pay homage to a great man, a great leader in the Kansas City area, and that's our former president of baseball operations and general manager, Mr. Dayton Moore. Certainly, most people realize that Dayton was let go a few weeks ago in a changing of the guard, so to speak. But the impact that Dayton has had on Kansas City as a whole, I don't think you can even measure it in the World Series championship and the American League Championship Series. But being able to resurrect a once proud franchise, to bring it back to the top of baseball and to create a model major and minor league system, and to also grow a new generation of leaders, and then his investment into the community. We just really can't pay a price on that. Certainly, his impact on me and my family and bringing us here to Kansas City to be a part of the Royals organization is my own personal story. But anybody who's been a part of the Royals organization, especially baseball ops, who's had an opportunity to work under him, will tell you how great a man that he is and what he's given to baseball. Few men have given to baseball. Yeah, there'll be those who will have more wins, and there'll be those who will have more World Series titles and things like that. But what he's given to the game, what he's given of himself in the community, and his foundation, and how it grows young leaders, and even our Urban Youth Academy that we have here was part of Dayton's vision of giving back to the community. And so my penny for my thought is for my brother, who is, just like I say, one of the finest gentlemen I've ever met in or out of the game of baseball. And so I know that he'll continue to contribute to this greater Kansas City area, but he'll continue to contribute to Major League Baseball as a whole.
That's great. And I totally agree with you with Dayton Moore. What he did, and I do it mainly towards the 2014-2015 season, what he did was amazing. Brought me and my son, and it wasn't like my son and I were at odds at all, but the World Series brought us together. He bought a ticket to the first World Series in 2014, and that was just amazing. And then we were there together when they beat Seattle to win their first division title since 1985. And so, you can give Dayton Moore that credit because he helped revive a team that was struggling. Fans were coming out. And so that was some of the stories that I could tell you. You have your own stories with him, but my stories is what my son and I do, and what my daughter and I, because she wants to go for her birthday to a game every year together, just me and her. And so that is something that he helped provide, and that is something that I will always thank him about too. So, and we are getting near the end of the show. Now, which timer we got? We got what, a minute left?
Yeah.
Because I see 59 here, so I was making sure that we got it going. Great show. We're going to discuss where we're going to golf next week and everything. But I truly enjoy our friendship. I value it very, very, very much. You're one of my valued friends and commandant, and I really appreciate the fact that we get to do a show together. So I just want to thank you for everything, and that we got to meet. And so with that, I think we're getting ready to get off here. I am Brian Kress, the Awesome Voice, Coach 24, Darwin Penny, George Walker, DJ Scatter. You guys have yourself a fantastic weekend, and we will see you next Thursday.